Hey guys, and welcome to Monday. It has not been much of an interesting day, I gotta be honest with you, but there is something I did today that I thought I would share because it is something that might affect the upcoming month. I'm not entirely sure if it will or not, but it's something I'm thinking about, that I've been thinking about a lot over the past, few months, but very specifically a lot of things having to do with this over the last week or so, and it's kind of been all at the back of my mind, and I've just been working on it in the back of my mind for a while, and I thought it was about time to write some of the stuff down, and so in April there is Camp NaNoWriMo. Now I don't think I'll be doing that. I was originally gonna, or earlier today, I was thinking today I'll try to vlog about my thoughts on what I might do for Camp NaNoWriMo, because I haven't really addressed it or even thought about it really up until this morning, that I might do Camp NaNoWriMo, which is basically a smaller version of NaNoWriMo in November, where you write a book in a month. And I was gonna of course work on the same book I've been working on, but I don't know, I wasn't sure if I'd be able to have the time to do that, especially now that, I thought maybe because I've kind of put a hold on editing vlogs for just a little bit, and I still have a ton of books to review, and so I'm not entirely sure how this will work out, and I'll actually do any of this on a regular basis in April, but it's definitely something I would love to tackle as much as I can in April. It's been over the next week until April, but definitely in April I would love to tackle this. But basically what I did today, I stopped by the store and I grabbed this. It's another notebook, and I'm writing my book in a notebook, and that's a really thick notebook. This is a bit of a thinner one, but it's a story planning notebook, and I'm kind of really excited about it. It's specifically for this one that I'm writing now, but I don't know. I've talked about this before, in love with the idea of creating a series of books that are all connected through a specific universe or set of worlds or whatever, and all have an overarching theme or story that's going on behind the scenes, and that you have to kind of pay attention to get a hold of. That's why I love Brandon Sanderson so much. That's why I love the Dark Tower series and everything, all the connections to that Stephen King puts in, and just stuff like that I really, really enjoy and love and have a lot of fun with, and I feel like I would have the most fun if I were writing something like that. And I've been thinking about, even before I read that much Stephen King, even before I've read any of Brandon Sanderson, that's something that's been in my mind for a long time. That's something that I've been wanting to create for a long time, a set of books that kind of go together. Some of them might be series, but for the most part, they would all just be kind of these standalone things that are all connected in some way. And I've been really, really working on, for this specifically, how this would all be connected. And this book that I've been writing since November, that I started in November for NaNoWriMo, it has seriously been the perfect to this universe kind of thing. And it is a universe. I'm creating a universe with very specific backstory to it, and worlds that have very specific backstories to them. I have this idea for a series that I think would be a grand, big, awesome epic fantasy kind of series that I don't think I'm capable of writing yet at all. I don't think I'm capable of writing it, and I have tons of ideas for that are all just in the back of my mind quite a bit. But I'm starting with this, the book I started in November. I'm starting this standalone. It's a mix between this whole thing, all of these books, this universe, all of the books in it would be a mix between epic fantasy and science fiction. There's science elements into it, and I've been doing a lot of research into stuff like that, and a lot of fantasy elements, stuff that I've made up, and stuff that I put together with the science elements to make it more interesting for me to create. So I'm creating certain elements to go along with these more realistic things. So anyway, it's just going to be something that I hope is really cool and really ends up working out, because I have this whole idea for the background of this, what's happening in this universe, that I think is really, really cool. And I've been doing a lot of research into it and putting a lot of work into in my brain into it, and I've written down a decent amount of it, especially in how it's related to this book that I've been writing in November. But I've come up with so many ideas since then that I really need somewhere to put them, a way to plan out things more. But also, specifically, this would be a notebook just for that book that I am writing, like I said. So the book that I'm writing, it takes place on a specific planet, and there's stuff that has happened before this planet. I'm not going to go into too much detail before that, but I basically have some tabs right here that I made that are stuck in here. That each section has a very specific even amount of pages, so all the sections are even. There's 6 of them, and so there's a few tabs that are like the history leading up to the planet that this book takes place on, and the story of how things have come to be the way they are in that book that I'm writing right now. So the first like 3 are like the before story, and like there's a lot of stuff that is going to go into that that I already know for a fact, and the stuff that I had to come up with, and I'm really excited to imagine and fit in, and it's like that stuff is a little bit less important. It's kind of like a big backstory that you're not really going to even see that much of in the actual book itself, and I'm probably going to spend less time on making sure this book has that kind of stuff in it, because I'm going to hopefully have a lot of years in my life to explore the other ideas that I have for this universe, and I'll be able to explore other things within it. Some things that I'm going to start planning out now, but not necessarily going into until later. Like, this is just stuff for me to know about before I even get into the whole thing. Like, this is just stuff for me, and I feel like I've noticed a lot of authors do this kind of thing. They just kind of write out a ton of stuff about their worlds, and a lot of that stuff doesn't even end up in the book that they're writing or the books that they're writing, and I'm fascinated by how I could possibly create something that heavy and put it into a series of books like this. Anyway, so I'm really excited for this, and then so those first few will be all of the before, everything that came before this book that I'm writing now, what led up to it. And then there's one tab for lots of like specific history of the stuff that's happened on this specific planet, and kind of like what it's like specific, going to really specific detail about the things that are there, and how it works, like what kind of planet it is and what kinds of things are on it, and like how things work there, basically. And so that's going to be a very detailed look into that specific world that this book takes place on. And then the 5th tab, this one right here. So these first 3 are before. This one is like that specific planet, and which already a lot of the planets already have names that I won't talk about those right now. So then the 5th one is characters, and so I'm going to go into. I've already done some of this with a lot of characters already, where I've kind of written them down and like talked about them at length for myself, to kind of get into their heads a little bit more. But for this characters, I'm going to try to come up with like what I think their backstories are up until the point of when the story starts. Like, I'm going to talk about what's happened to them, where they've come from, and why they are who they are, and what's led them to being who they are, and why they're doing what they're doing in the plot of the story. And then the last tab is story/plot, which is I've already done as well. I've already done a pretty decent amount of outlining and stuff, but that's not really going to be an outline. I already have a pretty extensive outline of the book in a folder, like in some papers that are kind of like in a three-ring folder. This is more going to be like me writing out basically one gigantic long like summary from beginning to end of what I think will happen in the book, and that'll help me, I think, to figure out what themes and what character arcs and characters' stories and stuff are like. What I might need to move around in the outline. Like I've been thinking a lot about my outline, and I really like it, and it's working out so far for what I've written. But I kind of want to write out in detail like a summary from beginning to end of what, like, this thing led to this thing, and like the characters, what they're doing at any given moment, and really try to figure out what the characters are doing, and not necessarily when they're the camera lens of the story is being focused on them. Like, I want to go specifically into the plot, but I also want to go into like what other characters are doing at this moment that leads to them being in other places, in other parts of the story. So I kind of just want to go into more detail than what my outline currently is, and not necessarily in an outline format. So it'd be like kind of like writing a very simplified Cliff Notes version of what I think the story will be, but maybe a little bit less, even more simplified, version of Cliff Notes, because I don't want to just like sit there and write the story. Obviously, it's not going to be the actual book word for word, not at all. It'll probably be very loose, unhindered consciousness flow of words that just I don't really think about too much. Whereas with actual writing, I actually do have to think about like what I'm saying and the order of like what's being said and why it's being said and stuff like that. Anyway, I think it'll be a lot of fun. I think this would be a good project to have to kind of go along with the actual book itself, to really explore these things more. And a lot of the stuff I think will actually, because the story, I'm still writing it. Obviously not as often as I would like. It's definitely not every day, and sometimes it's not every week. Sometimes I do pick it up and write a little bit here and there, and obviously that's the best way to work. But I think this will help me get into it even more and just become more focused into it and understand what I'm doing even more. I think this will help me understand where I'm coming from in a lot of places within the actual writing itself. Like when I approach a certain character, this will help me. When I approach a certain plot line, a certain plot point, it'll help me a lot. When I approach a certain thing that needs to be addressed that happens on this world or that happened in history or something like that, this will help me a lot. So anyway, that was a long ramble about stuff. I don't even know if Camp NaNoWriMo will be a thing that even remotely happens this month, because I have a lot of other stuff to do. Obviously this year I'm going to be trying really hard, even though it's already like the end of the third month. We're already a fourth of the way through the year, and I have not really done much writing at all. I would love for this year to have something to show for it at the end, like writing wise, but we'll see. Obviously I have to put the work in, but it's kind of difficult with all the other stuff. So it's to the point where like I need to figure out how best to approach the timing that I give myself, and what time I'm giving myself for certain things in my daily life, and like what I need to maybe focus on more. I kind of have to pick some things and focus on more on those, and then maybe put some other things more like less on a daily basis thing that I'm working on. Like I might have to like scale down the amount that I'm reading, the amount of books that I'm reviewing. I might have to scale down how long I make these vlogs sometimes, which is, this vlog is getting too long. So anyway, well, I'm hoping writing will still be a thing this year as the year goes on. So we'll see how that goes. Thank you guys so much for watching. I think that's it for today, and we will see you tomorrow.